Good morning to you all. We meet during a sad period when many South Africans have died tragically in Nigeria, causing untold pain to many families and compatriots. Our High Commission in Nigeria gave us the figure of 67 people who died in the collapse of the building, but search and rescue missions are still continuing, after which we will know for sure how many citizens we have lost. We extend our deepest condolences again to the families and relatives. I have established an interministerial task team that will help us to manage the disaster. The members of the task team are the Minister in the Presidency, Mr. Jeff Kader, as Chairperson, the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Home Affairs, Social Development, Police, State Security, Health, and the Minister of Defense and the Military. They will support families and do whatever is necessary to manage the impact of this tragedy. We urge all South Africans to provide all possible support to the affected families. Many municipalities will be affected in a way by this disaster. We urge women and men to also provide support to the families of deceased who come from their areas. Compatriots and leadership of the three spheres of our government, it is a great pleasure to address you at this second Presidential Local Government Summit. The first time we met in this format was on the 20th of October 2009 in Kairika in Cape Town. Some of you might have forgotten. At that occasion, we emphasized the significance of coming together as all three spheres of government, from the presidency to every municipality in the land. We have come together because we all recognize the importance of local government as a sphere that is closest to our people. I deemed it necessary to convene another summit to meet with all of you since you are coming into office after the 2011 local government elections. we have come together because we all agree that the basic services and the needs of our people must be met. The fifth administration will thus work hard to achieve a radical and meaningful change in the performance of local government. The aim of the 2014 Presidential Local Government Summit is to go further than our last meeting in 2009. Out of this summit must emerge a focused action plan to strengthen local government by getting the basics right. Our unique constitution enshrines socio-economic rights. These include the rights to dignity, water, sanitation, housing, and other basic needs. Local government, working with other spheres, must provide these services efficiently and effectively, and in a caring manner. Progress has already been achieved in the provision of services to many communities. The release of the 2011 census confirmed the great strides made in providing basic services. This upward trend is reinforced by the recent report on the non-financial census of municipalities, which was released on the 2nd September 2014. This report confirmed that the services rendered by municipalities have reduced poverty. The report focuses on basic services, namely water services, electricity services, sewage and sanitation services, and solid waste management services offered by the 278 municipalities across the country. The report shows that 11.8 million basic water services are provided to households, with 5.3 million receiving free basic services. Of the 11.8 million who receive basic water services, 2.5 million benefited from indigent support. As you are aware, indigent households are those that qualify for rebates or services subsidies. 10 million consumer units were receiving sewage and sanitation from municipalities in South Africa, and 31.1% of these consumer units had access to free basic sewage and sanitation. These are just a few examples of positive developments mentioned and the report. I would like to congratulate all municipalities, councillors, and municipal staff who have made a significant difference in changing people's lives and living conditions as demonstrated by this report. However, as a presidency 20-year review highlights, challenges still remain. And it is always important to appreciate that these challenges are not new, challenges that we had to deal with as a democratic country. At times, people, when discussing challenges, they seem to think that these challenges just mushroomed after 1994, instead of appreciating that the change in 1994 was a beginning of a process to deal with the backlog of apartheid. And that's what we are dealing with. We have to do better to improve good governance and the functioning of municipalities, and also in the delivery of services. We should do better in improving services such as water infrastructure, solid waste management, or the provision of electricity. Other services such as refuse removal, the cleaning of the streets, the provision of parks and recreational facilities remain critically important and contribute to building a better life for all. These are the simple, basic services that, when provided efficiently, will make our people's experience of local government a pleasant one. As we deliberate today, we will be doing so against the background of the country's socio-economic blueprint up to 2030, the National Development Plan. The plan has identified a number of areas for targeted action in improving governance and administration. Some of the priority areas to improve delivery include achieving a clearer separation between the roles of the political principals and the administrative heads of municipalities. In addition, accountability and oversight in local government must be improved or reinforced. Management systems must improve. There should be better audit reports for each local authority each year from the Auditor General. Government has responded to improve professionalism and the management of local government by introducing amendments to local government legislation For an example, the Municipal System Amendment Act, there should be no compromise in ensuring that officials possess the necessary minimum skills. Chief finance officers should be skilled in what they are doing. Engineers and other technical staff should also be experts in what they have been employed to do. That is the key solution to the problems facing local government. Notwithstanding the above shortcomings, there are many examples of excellence in local government that we can leverage on. There are municipalities that are functioning effectively with effective political and administrative systems, with strong internal audit and financial management structures. There are municipalities in which councils are actively involved in monitoring the implementation of all governance resolutions. The daily and monthly financial management disciplines are strictly observed, and the annual financial statements are signed off on a quarterly basis. There are municipalities who are doing that. If there are, why can't all of them do it? If there are some who can do it. These municipalities are characterized by keen administration, where the staff complement as a collective prioritize fraud prevention and risk management. These municipalities also have a zero tolerance to poor performance and conduct regular performance reviews and implement corrective measures where needed. We will be hearing about some of these today, and we learn from their experiences. We also commit to support all struggling municipalities. Every municipality must be fully functional and efficient for the sake of our people who need reliable and efficient services. However, if municipalities do not improve in spite of support, we will have no alternative but to use all constitutional powers and legislative opportunities in the quest to ensure that our communities are served better. Compatriots, local government exists to serve the people. That is the bottom line. In this regard, municipalities must take more decisive action to involve communities and community organizations in the matters of local government. a roundabout on-service delivery held by the COGTA Ministry in April this year deliberated on the possible causes and reasons for protest by municipalities, by communities, not municipalities, by communities. Municipalities can't protest against themselves. Many reasons have been identified for protests. Many communities become impatient when they see services being delivered to their neighbors, but with no sign of these coming to them as soon as possible. Other results include demands for municipal infrastructure, anger against corruption, nepotism, and non-response from government. Reports also include the manipulation of communities by aspirant politicians or by businesses that want tenders or to influence discussions. In some cases, people protest against municipalities even if the issues at hand do not fall under their mandate. As far as communities, government is government. They don't separate. And at times, these matters would be beyond the capacity and authority of the municipality. But the people don't know that. They want government to service them. Because this level of government is the closest to the community. It is the first port of call for any protest action. People demanding a school may march to the local municipality while no local authority has the competence to build a school. Local government should thus be in a position to respond or coordinate responses to these grievances. This requires effective intergovernmental relations and also speedy intervention from the provincial and national sphere on matters concerning their mandate. Just to underscore this point of protests and causes, I had an occasion to talk to our ambassadors and high commissioners a few weeks ago. And I talked on this matter because I could imagine that sitting where they are with quick kind of communications today, any protest that is captured by the media is immediately beamed throughout the globe. And I was saying to them, I can imagine people coming and saying, but what's happening in your country? In another sense, it says this country perhaps is not looking after its people. That's an impression given as you see the picture. But I was saying to them, they must not be shy to answer and explain why. That firstly, this country took a deliberate stance since 1994 to work out plans to address the challenges facing our people. So it has policies and plans which are known, and it is implementing these. And partly because people see changes happening, but not to them. They become impatient. They want services now. And they protest in order to quicken the process, etc., etc. And indeed, if you look around South Africa, you will see changes. And I said to them, you must then say, perhaps other countries don't have these. They have no plans. People just remain. And therefore, people have nothing to judge their challenge against. And indeed, it is true. Some countries, through where they fought for freedom, once freedom was there, it was enough. Then thereafter, you see it to yourself. Mas bonel. We're not worried whether you have a road or you have a house. But this country, we have a program to give free of charge poor people who cannot afford houses. And I was saying that's where the difference comes. We have plans and we do give people. We look for our people who are in difficulties, and we are looking after approximately 16 million people who are given a grant so that they could leave. It's not found in other countries. In fact, countries neighboring South Africa have their citizens crossing every month to benefit from the social services that we give. Now, we can explain this in many ways. That it is because we are actively working out ways and means of addressing the plight of our people, and our people are aware of it, and therefore they demand it. But the reason why there are no protests in other countries, there are no such plans. That's a reality. I think we must not fail to explain this, because at times we might feel guilty when we are actually doing, in my view, better than many, because we are saying our policies are tilting towards the poor and the working people in our country. And we have programs for it. It is not a propaganda. We have programs. And people therefore say, please come quicker. And that's what causes, in other words, the protests are not because this government is doing nothing or the country is doing nothing. It's because it's doing something. The resources themselves are not enough to do it overnight. But every program, that's why we are talking about the national government programs, provincial and local. We must not fail to explain this. I know that the media doesn't explain this. It needs us to explain it, not so. Because it is us who must understand it, who could explain it. And if we, as this leadership of three spheres, we're spending more times in the media explaining what is happening in this country, what will therefore reach the globe will be, one, the protest, but second, the explanation, contextualization of the protest. And I'm sure people will appreciate that in 20 years, we are still dealing with the legacy of apartheid. And I thought I should underline this point because it's so important. Because every one of us is walking guilty that we are doing nothing. We're actually doing something. I think some people are doing, maybe they are doing something. Before I make the famous remark, I mean, in no country can have people demonstrating, stopping children from going to school because they want a road. And therefore their children must not proceed with education because they want a road. And everything must come to stand still. It's a question of how we handle ourselves, because I think what I'm saying we need to explain as the leadership of the all three spheres of government will even help those citizens to understand and appreciate that with the resources we are trying our level best. That today we have not reached one point does not mean we are not going to reach it tomorrow, because we have got ongoing programs to better coordinate our response. We have established an interministerial task team on service delivery, which includes some frontline service ministers who will be working with colleagues in the provincial and local spheres to ensure that people get water, sanitation, electricity, and other services faster. I'm underlining this point because I want to underline the need for cooperation and coordination of our efforts as three spheres of government. No one should say, this sphere of mine remains here, and I do what belongs to me. We should link up, work together. You will realize how much effective it will be. Colleagues and compatriots, municipalities are where apartheid's settlement geography must be confronted, and where a new and more cohesive society must be born. Apartheid geography ensured that the majority of our people were housed and located in the marginal areas from the city centers, far away from the economic hub and opportunities, as well as from the services. This perpetuated their exclusion from the economy. We have to meaningfully de-racialize communities and overcome apartheid-era spatial development. All residents, black and white, must equally enjoy the benefits of development. In the State of the Nation address, I said the development of cooperative governance would produce an integrated urban development framework by the end of July. The draft strategy linked to the Rural Development Program has indeed been produced. It seeks to foster a shared understanding across government and society about how urbanization should best be managed. It outlines how the goals of economic development, job creation, and improved conditions of living for our people can be achieved. With the projected urbanization and population growth reaching 70% by 2030, the majority of these urban dwellers will be found in the cities and towns, townships, and informal settlements. This strategy is therefore very important for government planning. Distinguished participants, a well-functioning local government sector is of the utmost importance to create an enabling environment for the business sector to flourish and be sustainable, and for promoting job creation. We welcome the attendance of representatives from business at this summit, some of whom are already involved in partnerships at local levels. We also warmly welcome the innovative business adopt a municipality program. It is a helpful initiative with regards to promoting a closer working relationship between government, state-owned entities, and the private sector towards supporting vulnerable municipalities. We encourage more businesses to identify municipalities to support. This will help business to contribute to enhancing service delivery challenges in the local government sphere and improve performance in general for the benefit of the cities and towns. Compatriots, we must leave this place with an action plan that identifies what each sphere will do to improve local government with clear actions and time frames. Every single individual in our three spheres of dispensation must know his or her responsibilities to make local government function better. We must go back to the basics in the real sense of the word. Back to basics. Just clean in front of your house. Cut the fence. Clear the pavement in front of your house. Just basics. Just ensure that the seat is clean, that the plastics are not all over, are collected, and there are people who are not employed who would be happy to do so. I mean, how do you feel when you drive, the plastics jump up
because this town or city is dirty, and you think that's not your business. Just back to basics. When you walk into a place, by the look of the place, it tells you how life is. Not so. Kunjalo. Hey. Just basics. Clean. Chanel. Wa fiela kam fielo, ne? Kim fielo. Keep swearing that. Compatriots, we must commit to ensuring that municipalities are able to provide water, electricity, parks, street lighting, refuse removals, repairing of potholes, dealing with the frustrating interruption of services and billing problems affecting households. I mean, we councillor, mayor, normal minister, you are driving past the pothole every day. It says nothing to you. There must be something wrong. Going back to basics also means a recommitment to provide these services in a professional and caring manner, which recognizes each resident as a valuable client. Going back to basics, therefore, will mean that each municipality will actively interact with the community and promote ongoing two-way communication in every ward. Municipalities must ensure that all programs which are implemented at local level are clearly communicated and reported to the community. Going back to basics means reviewing tendering systems and dealing with corruption systematically within the supply chain system in local government. Going back to basics also means working harder to expand poverty alleviation programs such as the Community Work Program, which provides skills and work opportunities for our people. Going back to basics enjoins municipalities to boost rural development by supporting small enterprises, cooperatives, and smallholder farmers in rural towns and villages. Establishing community and village markets to promote food security will also greatly improve the work of many of our district municipalities. Back to basics means, in essence, that from this summit onwards, local government will indeed become everybody's business. Together, we should move local government forward. Compatriots, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to declare this local government summit open. And I thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you very much. I think let us give the President another back to basics round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I think the President has laid a solid foundation for our deliberations. The President has outlined very clearly the tremendous progress that we've made as a nation in building democratic, developmental local government and providing the services that ensure a better life and a dignified human existence for all in South Africa. The President has also outlined the serious challenges facing many of our municipalities. He's challenged us to work together across the three spheres of government to get the basics right, to ensure that people's experience of local government is a pleasant one. He's also spoken of the need for us collectively to deal with the terrible legacy of apartheid spatial patterns through integrated urban and rural development. He's also spelled out clearly the roles that he expects each and every one of us at this summit to play to ensure that this happens. Mr. President, we thank you. The line of march is clear. Get back to basics. We will now show some visuals that depict both the good story to tell in local government as well as some of the serious problems that require our collective attention to get the basics right. After these visuals, I'll hand over to my colleague, Deputy Minister Vapela, to continue directing the program. I thank you.
For the vast majority of our population, local government is the only government they ever encounter. And our country's people-focused constitution recognizes this. South Africa is one of the few countries to have entrenched the powers, responsibilities and functions of local governance in their constitutions. The constitution is quite clear on the score. Every South Africa's municipality is to provide democratic and accountable government for local communities, to be responsive to the needs of the local community, to ensure the provision of services to communities in a sustainable manner, to promote social and economic development, to promote a safe and healthy environment, to encourage the involvement of communities and community organizations in matters of local government, to facilitate a culture of public service and accountability amongst its staff. In other words, the Constitution envisages a productive interchange between the municipality and the community it serves. Is this happening? Not well enough. In a recent review of South Africa's 278 municipalities by COGTA, the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs revealed the three groups of municipalities. In the first group, local officials have got the basics right, even though there's much work still to be done. A second group are almost dysfunctional and need help to get the basics right. And the final group are dysfunctional and require a great deal of work to get the basics right. In other words, there are three paths: the low path, the middle path, and the high path. South Africa cannot afford to allow even one municipality to languish on the low path any longer. The future of our country is at stake here. It's not all doom and gloom. Huge numbers of people have been successfully ushered over the threshold of poverty over the 20 years of democratic government, people who are now gainfully employed in decent jobs and earning a living wage. 73.4% of South Africans now have access to piped water within their homes or onto their dwellings. In Gauteng, Western Cape and the Free State, this figure rises to an average over 97%. 84.7% have access to electricity for lighting. 90.6% South Africans now have access to a flush or chemical toilet. and only 1.5% have no access to waste removal services. These are encouraging achievements, and municipal and local government officials can congratulate themselves on this. But on the other side of the same coin, we see a very different reality. 26% of our fellow citizens still have no access to piped water into their homes. Almost 16% have no access to electricity for lighting. Almost 10% have no access to a flush or chemical toilet. And almost 2% have to dispose of their own waste. These are people crying out for help, and the help we give them cannot be entrusted to incompetent individuals and dysfunctional municipalities. We have to act, and act very quickly. For starters, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Pravin Gordhan, has called for a back-to-basics approach in terms of which municipalities will set clear benchmarks for the performance of their basic responsibilities every day without fail. This includes the consistent provision of basic services and maintenance like grass cutting, patching of potholes, ensuring that robots and street lights are working, and that refuse is removed regularly. These basics must be provided by all municipalities. The basics approach also means that all municipal council structures must be functional and meet regularly. Oversight committees must be in place, perform without interference, and ensure that there is transparency and accountability on these processes. Basic to the administrative function will be municipal enforcement of competence standards for senior managers and the appointment of people with the required skills, expertise, and qualifications. All senior managers are to sign performance agreements to be applied in accordance with the law. All municipalities are to have a basic functional financial management system featuring rigorous internal controls and cash-backed budgets. This is a system that aims to cut wasteful expenditure, a system with post-audit action plans, and one that will act decisively against fraud and corruption. There are to be clearly defined platforms for community engagement and dialogue, and transparent, responsive and accountable processes are to be followed. These issues are seen as basic to the issues of service delivery, and COCTA will be working with provincial departments of local government, the South African Local Government Association, SALGA, and other key institutions within and outside of government to establish compliance monitoring capabilities, and will introduce mechanisms for managing consequences for non-compliance and poor performance. The goal of COCTA's Back to Basics initiative is nothing less than the transformation of the local government agenda, and the action plan has 3 clear priorities. Number 1, put all municipalities on the middle path. Not even one municipality should be on the lower path. Number 2, support those on the middle path to reach the high path. And number 3, support and motivate municipalities already on the high path to remain there. To strengthen the effort, Minister Gordhan and his team have also identified critical issues. They include the development of a rapid response capability to deal with the most pressing problems of dysfunctional municipalities and systems. Taking firmer steps to understand and appropriately respond to the structural challenges of our society, including the distorted spatial legacy of the apartheid era, the consequence of rapid urbanization, and strengthening of the role of district municipalities in the provision of bulk services. Another important issue is that of continuing to build strong institutions, systems and processes in local government. On this score, Minister Gordhan had previously announced the founding of a local government training institute. Another step beyond the basic level is the question of stimulating more effective interaction between the various sector departments involved in service delivery at national and provincial level. COCTA also aims to assist municipalities to build their internal technical capacity. The department is considering the introduction of legislation designed to incentivize specific positive behavior among municipalities. Minister Gordhan is insistent that when it comes to finances, municipalities of all sizes and locations must play a more dynamic, assertive and innovative role in experimenting with economic development projects based on a special understanding of the municipality's own environment and its endowments, either physically or in terms of its unique human capital. National and provincial entities must find new ways of exploring local potential to develop local economies, thereby creating and contributing to a widening revenue base for municipalities. National transfers alone cannot meet all local needs. All of these decisions, proposals and developments follow the guidelines of the National Development Plan and are in line with local government turnaround strategy approved by Cabinet in 2009. Operation Clean Audit was introduced as part of the LGTA strategy in 2009, and since then there has been a noticeable improvement. The number of auditees receiving an unqualified opinion, municipalities have received strong technical support and increased institutional and management capacity through the Municipal Infrastructure Agent, the MISA. Over 100 municipalities have benefited from MISA initiatives and over 36,000 job opportunities have been created. Government is also taking firm action to strengthen the system of municipal performance monitoring, reporting and evaluation, and has intensified the fight against corruption. COCTA has partnered with the law enforcement agencies and provinces to ensure allegations of corruption and fraud are properly investigated and that the outcome of the investigations is regularly reported. In the end analysis, it is the mastery of the basics that will place every one of our 278 municipalities, if not all on the high path, then at least on the middle path, as we march together towards a better life for the whole South African family. And while we are busy with this, we continue to stretch out the hand of compassion to those in need. For the indigent, COCTA have the Free Basic Service Program, a measure to ease the suffering of those most at risk. For the able-bodied but poorly skilled, COCTA offers the Community Work Program, which provides work opportunities and on-site training in the field of community self-improvement with a guaranteed minimum monthly wage in return for 8 days of work a month. These programs represent a salvation for hundreds of thousands of the most severely challenged, while the municipalities that represent the front line of the service delivery system do what they have to do to sharpen their performance and so reduce the number of people condemned to the outskirts of society. In today's competitive world, we cannot afford up to a quarter of our national team permanently on the bench. That is your business, our business, everybody's business. That's the business of local government. We must all choose a fresh path, a path that leads all South Africans to prosperity. All our futures depends on this.
My name is Obed Bapela. I'm the Deputy Minister for Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs. I'm the Co-Program Director with my colleague, Deputy Minister Nel. And thanks very much, Deputy Minister Nel, for leading up to this particular point. At this point, I'll be inviting the Minister of Cooperative Governance, Minister Gordon, to come and do a presentation on Back to Basics. This presentation will set the scene for our Back to Basics discussions today. This presentation previews the performance of local government, the rationale for our call for Back to Basics, and in terms of reform, calls for a national, provincial, and local coalition for change. Take some notes during the presentation as there will be questions to be posed, and then we'll explain how those questions are going to be posed soon after the presentation. Minister Pravin Gordhan, it's your turn. Thanks.
Good morning once again, and thank you very much, Deputy Minister. Mr. President, Deputy Speaker Senoli, my fellow ministers and deputy ministers, premiers, mayors, senior leaders of the National House of Traditional Leaders, Your Worship, the mayors of our different municipalities across the country, speakers and council whips, directors general and DDGs from various government departments, and officials from these departments as well, municipal managers, chief financial officers of municipalities, and technical managers from municipalities, the leadership of the South African Local Government Association, of our two trade unions that are represented in the municipal sphere, SAMU and Imatu, fellow academics, I'm not an academic, so forgive me, the leadership of the business unit in South Africa and other business leaders that have accepted our invitation to be with us here today. I think you've heard the message more or less twice. They say that if you want a message to stick, you've got to repeat it 7 times. So this will be the 3rd time that you'll hear it. Hopefully, by the time my colleague, Minister Mokonyana, comes up here and later in the afternoon, we'll reach the target of 7 times. But let me run through what our proposition is to you. That to take local government forward, as the President has been saying, we've got to put people first. Often we get caught up in the technical details of either finances or engineering or indeed the politics of what we have to do and forget that we are here to serve the South African public. And engaging with communities is perhaps the key demand that communities are actually putting to all of us, whichever sector we come from. The second is deliver basic services and deliver them efficiently, cost-effectively, and on an everyday basis, and set up systems that will enable us to actually do that. Third, we are a constitutional state. We work in terms of the law, and we don't work arbitrarily. So good governance means implement the law, work in terms of the law, try not to defy the law, and if need be, we'll amend the law in order for us to be more effective, but breaking the law is not the right precedent to set for future generations. Sound financial management is something that we talk about as a country over and over again each year, either when the Minister of Finance addresses this issue or when the Auditor General addresses this issue. And we'll go through some of the details in a moment. But there are too many municipalities that don't do basic things in sound financial management on an everyday basis. What would that be? Just keeping records of all of your transactions, making sure that you've got proof of what you've been spending money on, being able to prepare as financial officers the annual financial statement. 3/4 of our municipalities rely on consultants who are paid hundreds of millions of rands to give you a product that the Auditor General says is 75% wrong. Now, that's wastage of money. It's feeding consultants. I understand they've got to have a living wage as well. But we employ CFOs and financial staff to do this work. They must do this work. Over the past 14 years of democratic local government and over the next decade or two, we've got to continue to build, as the President said, competent people and capabilities within the local government system. So what is local government expected to do? Ensure that there's democratic and accountable government, ensure that we are responsive to what communities say and ask and request us to attend to. Too often, either at a politician level or at an official level, the complaint about us is that we don't take people seriously. Our response times are too slow. We take a day to do something that should take an hour. We take 3 days for something that should take half a day. And responsiveness is the key area that we want to monitor about our own performance. Sustainable service provision means use the right pipes, as Minister Mokonyana and others might say, for the water infrastructure. Don't buy cheap pipes and then have to replace them in 2 years' time. Make sure that the engineering services that we obtain are quality services so that they last for the 10 or 20 or 30 years that the infrastructure is supposed to last. Ensure that we undertake with greater diligence projects that increase the socio-economic potential in our municipalities. There are still far too many of us who say, I want more money from the national fiscus. The Deputy Minister of Finance, who's here, will tell you later there isn't money from the national fiscus. But there's huge potential in our municipalities to increase the revenue base, either by collecting debt, increasing economic activity and thereby increasing the tax base, or doing other innovative things that ensure that more and more people get opportunities to exercise their creativity. Create a safe and healthy environment, the community involvement element. We have in South Africa regrettably developed a culture which says, depend on us, we'll provide everything for you. All you have to do as people is sit back. We need to change that culture. We need to create opportunities for people to participate in the developmental process, to contribute what some have called in the past sweat equity. They must feel that they're also building houses, that they're also engaging in agriculture, that they're also contributing to development processes within their communities. And above all, within the municipal sector, but indeed elsewhere as well, create a public service culture, a culture which understands that we are here to serve communities. You've heard that we've undertaken over the past 6 or 8 weeks a review of all municipalities in South Africa. We are not able to, given the shortness of time, tell you about all the findings, but let's share with you some of the highlights of what we have found as a result of this review. The first is that, the first conclusion we came to is that there are a number of factors that contribute to what is a good municipality. Firstly, as the President said, there must be political and administrative stability. I think if we have to be frank with each other, more than half of our municipalities have strife of one kind or another, either within the political sphere itself, or between the political and administrative, or within the administrative sphere itself. This kind of instability and unprofessional conduct is one that undermines our capability as municipalities to respond to people. Second, all committees and council and management meetings take place as they should, and that there's good relationships between the political representatives and the administration of municipalities. And you'll hear examples a little later in the program, or shortly in fact, about good success stories that we have. So we should be able, colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, because there are more than half of you who are doing things right. We must be able to demonstrate to South Africa that municipalities are not hopeless cases, that we have excellent practices within our municipalities of all of these issues that I'm raising. Align spending with the plans, the integrated development plans, the CapEx or infrastructure spending plans, and ensure that we budget 7% of our operational expenditure for maintenance. This is something that we're going to drum in every single day if we can help it. We are not repairing things when they should be repaired. We don't maintain our infrastructure as we should, and what we do as a result is cut the lifespan of infrastructure. Something that should last 30 years is now lasting 10 years. And that is a cost that we can't bear as an economy and as a society. On financial management, ensure that we receive more and more unqualified audits. I've said to the Auditor General, I don't believe there's a concept called clean audit. But what we do want to start focusing on is performance indicators, which we'll come to in a moment, by which we judge our performance and which the Auditor General can also use to judge the performance of municipalities. On institutional management and building institutional capability, many municipalities have these clear policies and delegation frameworks, some don't. And of course, the key for all of our work is that communities must be satisfied that we are doing everything possible in order to meet their requirements. And so the key test of whether we're doing our work or not, or whether we enjoy legitimacy or not, lies in community acceptability and feedback. What makes a poor functioning municipality to be what it is? This is a situation where political and administrative instability is present, and there is often political factionalism of one kind or another. Committees and council structures are not meeting as they should. There's fraud and corruption that everybody knows about. Many of us think, both within the structures and outside the structures, that we can engage in fraudulent activity without people knowing about it. Those days are gone. As a recent study in Gauteng shows, and I'm sure the Premier, when he comes up, might address that people perceive us as a corrupt lot. People perceive corruption as a serious issue. Now, whether it's factually correct or not, that's the perception. It's our collective responsibility to remove that perception. It's our collective responsibility to make sure that both our legal, the procedural conduct and formal or informal conduct is in line with the law. Low service delivery, outages which are not fixed immediately, as I said earlier on. Asset theft is a big issue. By this we mean cable theft, other forms of metals being stolen, which results in outages and other forms of service delivery breakages, poor maintenance, which I mentioned earlier on, the audit results that are not of quality standard. But we've got to go beyond audits. Audits happen 12, 18 months after we've spent the money. We've also got to talk about how do we spend the money efficiently. How do we get the best deal? How do we get the best bang for the buck, as the colloquialism says? We are not getting that at the moment. Generally, in the public sector, we are paying probably somewhere between 20 and 40% more than we should be paying for either services or goods that we actually buy. That's unacceptable. And so the private sector also has a responsibility to come to the party, but we have a responsibility to manage the contracts that we have with the private sector as well. The issues of institutional management is poor in this kind of context, and community dissatisfaction with municipalities is therefore high. But coming back to the positive, here's an example, just one example, of where we've done well, as the President said in his address to you, and which the video indicated as well. The number of households that have better access to basic services, so you can see the difference between 2001 and 2011, generally speaking. The next one is water received in the house, toilets in the house, electricity within the house, and weekly removal of refuse. So our assessment, ladies and gentlemen and colleagues, is basically telling us the following. If you start from your left, just under a third of the municipalities are not doing well. A third have the potential to do better, and it's our job, together with our municipal colleagues, but also our provincial colleagues, to help you to do better. But a third of our municipalities, A third of our municipalities are doing very well. A third of our municipalities can do better. So if you combine that, within the next year or two, it's possible to push our performance to the level where two-thirds of our municipalities do well in terms of what they're supposed to do across all provinces. But a third of our municipalities are not doing well. And these are the municipalities that require intensive attention from all of us. At the same time, in this kind of context, we must recognize, as we've heard earlier, that we do have positive achievements in the last 14 years of democratic local government. We have established a whole new municipal regime in South Africa in terms of Chapter 7 of the Constitution and the legislation based on Chapter 7 of the Constitution, i.e. wall-to-wall democratic municipalities. It's never existed in our history. There's a significant scale of service delivery, as was pointed out by the President, and many independent reports point out the same. We've got better integrated transport in some of our bigger municipalities. There's a lot of work to do in this regard to build on this foundation. We've got innovative practices in many of our municipalities and a basic resilience in terms of performance that we can build on and learn from. At the same time, we have to be frank with each other as South Africans and face these challenges frontally and demonstrate the South African determination, which we've done many times over, to overcome them. So starting in the middle is, as I said earlier on, insufficient institutional capacity, either technical capacity or knowledge of how municipalities work, low rate of revenue collection. There is a worrying trend of non-payment at a municipal level. There's a worrying trend of high indebtedness at a municipal level. But as the Johannesburg example shows, there's a worrying trend of services being stolen, inverted commas, and not paid for. and hundreds of millions of rands is being lost in municipal revenue as a result of this. Illegal connections, improperly engineered, or let's call it what it is, cooked up prepaid meters. And we've now got, in case some of you are not aware, you've got big shopping centers and private sector enterprises which are cooperating with syndicates to undermine revenue collection at a municipal level. And I want you to applaud as a signal of your disapproval of that kind of practice. The issue the President raised of unskilled or improperly appointed personnel, we're going to take a very harsh view of this in the next few months. And both provincial level colleagues and municipal leadership will start receiving letters fairly soon identifying people who've been improperly employed or don't have the right kind of qualifications, and you are going to be asked to deal with these matters as a matter of urgency. Slow service delivery is self-explanatory. Inadequate public participation, we've spoken about. Ward councillors, some of them do extremely well and are excellent examples of public representatives, others don't. Ward committees that are there as structures but are not actually performing optimally at this point in time, whereas others do as well. And a big issue for all of us in this room is social distance. As the President will say, keep your feet on the ground. Understand what people actually want, listen to what they have to say to you, and above all, respond to them. There's too much of a perception at the moment that politicians and people who occupy high public office as officials live their own lives and live in their own sphere. They don't have regular enough contact with so-called ordinary people. It's a perception, whichever political party we come from, that we need to change. And it's a practice that we need to reverse. As the video was saying, we must set a collective target for ourselves, that those who are top performers as municipalities must continue to do that, but also act as role models for other municipalities and take on the more complex challenges of spatial integration, of economic development within their municipalities, without becoming too fanciful at the expense of ignoring important tiers of society. Those that are in the middle, and will communicate this to you, must aspire to become top class and use the role models that we have amongst us. We don't have to go visiting and paying SNTs for ourselves and so on to many other countries in the world. We've got good examples in South Africa. Use those good examples to inspire us to do the right thing. And of course, those of us that are at the bottom who are guilty of allowing corruption to go unchallenged, municipal performance not being what it should be, service delivery being poor, and no real community engagement, we've got hard work to do with you in order to take you to another level. What does getting basics right mean? As I said earlier, putting people first and listening to what they are saying and responding to them. Adequate community-orientated service provision. One of the things that colleagues we need to consider is whether our municipal officers are accessible to ordinary people when they are available, not when we are ready to open our offices. And perhaps if we can attract people who have complaints to those offices rather than into the streets, we can make a big difference to the perception that the President was talking about earlier on. Good governance and administration, sound financial management, and robust institutions and administrations. Our priorities must be, as we said earlier on, to get all municipalities at the bottom tier out of that tier, support municipalities in the middle tier, but also people like yourselves have an important role in providing leadership here. And above all, as we say at the bottom, we've got to change this perception that all of us are corrupt and fraudulent. And we've also got to demonstrate political will, administrative will, and legal will that we are determined to act against those that do engage in corruption and fraud. So getting basic right means, as we were saying earlier on, working street lights, repairing pavements, patching potholes, keeping the municipality clean, cutting the grass, fixing leaking taps, There are many municipalities I've visited in the last 6 to 8 weeks, and it's amazing. A municipality in a particular province employs 1,000 community works program people, or 1,000 people in the community works program. The city centre is very clean, but 2 kilometers outside of the city centre is dumping, the plastic bags that the President was talking about, and there's enough people there to keep that area clean and get the community involved as well. Leadership means that all of you, ladies and gentlemen, both on the political side and on the administrative side, have got to take the lead. You've got to walk the streets. You've got to show by active example that you don't want these things not working in your municipality. And it's only by getting out of our offices and by being seen in the streets by our own people and by picking up the plastic ourselves, as we did on Mandela Day all over the country, that we're going to show people that we're serious about what we want to do. In addition, we've got to develop, and we will work with you to give help in this regard, comprehensive infrastructure plans rather than ad hoc projects all over the show, implementation of the maintenance provisions, as I spoke about earlier on, the rapid response capability so that we don't allow situations to worsen where they could be nipped in the bud, and to ensure that service delivery interruptions are addressed in a quick way. Our motto should be no service failures, and where there are service failures, we will restore them with a sense of urgency. If we meet in a year's time, I think we are going to have a collective capability to put every municipality's performance on the screen and actually say, in respect of all of these areas, how well have we done? That capability is now being developed together with our partner departments, and we'll, when we get together in a year's time, go through the 278 municipalities and say, in terms of these basic things that we've asked each other to do, how well are we doing? And if we're not doing well, please explain to the boss, the President, why is it that you're not doing well? So good governance, without taking up too much of your time, must mean clear delineation of roles and responsibilities, functional governance structures within a municipality. One of the things that's not happening adequately is oversight by councillors of the executive part of municipal councils and of officials. In some places we have the structures, in other places we don't. In some places the frequency is right, in other places it isn't. This is a key element of democracy at a local level. Transparency and accountability is a key. I think the kind of lead that the Premier of Gauteng has given, and building on what we've been saying about procurement over the last few years, is important. How do we open up the procurement processes in municipalities and elsewhere, Mr. President, in government, to public participation, or at least public oversight? Invite members of the public to watch us as we evaluate our bids, as we open tenders, as we decide on who should get it. Hopefully it doesn't end up in another fight, but that transparency is going to be important to keep all of us honest at the end of the day. In a few years' time, we will say we did the right thing. We want a responsive administration. The areas are there. I'm not going to read all of them for you, and these slides will be distributed later. Make sure that we have sound financial management. I've referred to some of these. The one area we're not doing well is on the area of credit control. Too many municipalities are giving debt collection out to private sector entities. Too many of our municipalities are paying anything between 10% and 20-30% to debt collectors to collect your debt. That's a very high charge. So we want to work with the National Treasury and see how we could get, if you do need assistance in collecting debt, how do we get a transversal contract at the right price? Debt collection doesn't cost 10 and 20%, as you are being charged at the moment. The functional supply chain structures is something that we've mentioned earlier on as well. Acting against corruption. Each of us have been trying to do something, but as the public perception surveys show, not adequately. But new areas are currently being explored by legal people within government. And amongst those actions is a second bullet point. And that is if it can be shown that person X, whoever that person is, in the municipal structures or outside of it, has benefited, for example, to the tune of 10 million rands in an improper way, through improper procurement processes, then the law allows us to define that money as money obtained through illegal or organized crime means, and that money or assets can in fact be either forfeited or frozen until court processes are completed. The second mechanism is civil claims. Those people could receive letters from government, the State Attorney's Office. Here is proof that you've improperly obtained 5 million rands. You've got 30 days to pay it back. If you don't, then you'll end up in the debt courts or whatever it is, and we'll have to go through civil processes to prove that you don't have to pay that money. And in my old days, we used to talk about a particular kind of lifestyle audits, but lawyers are also looking at what lifestyle audits mean in the context of municipal officials and politicians as well, so that we can demonstrate to the public that we have nothing to hide. Do you agree with me? This is not a government-only function, as the last bullet point says. We want the private sector to also come to the party. They also have a role to raise the level of morality and ethics and integrity in the private sector. And importantly, civil society as well, in order that we create the right culture in South Africa. Substantive community involvement, the guidelines you're very aware of. I think the key issue is how do we put them into practice. A challenge which the President has addressed that municipal colleagues have been raising for some time now, and us as colleagues who operate at the national level recognize, is that certainly all of us operate within the municipal space. If you're putting up a house or a major water pipeline or a big electrical cable or building a dam or whatever the case might be, it happens in the municipal area. What we require and we are going to begin to work at is better intergovernmental delivery coordination, which must be based on better integrated planning, both vertically speaking and horizontally speaking as well. So here are some instances. We have the sort of macro legislation at the moment for spatial planning. Public transport is an area that is absolutely crucial, which we will discuss with the Minister of Transport. Human settlements is a similar area where we will grouse about where land is actually found at the moment, where land can be made available, where publicly owned land is not made available for housing, and all of those issues can be resolved within a constructive intergovernmental relations context. Delivery also needs better coordination. We acknowledge that on our side. And this is what is going to ultimately demonstrate to our people that we are serious about using all of their resources, because it's tax money that we spend, in order to meet the requirements that they actually have. The President mentioned the establishment of this interministerial committee, which will start working shortly and use what I've just said as its objectives. And of course, traditional leaders have an important role in our society as well. Our key objective in the near term is to continue to harmonize the relationships between traditional leadership structures and local government structures. Here again, there are excellent examples amongst our municipalities, and there are examples where a good leadership is required to get the right kind of harmony. Participation in IDPs and in community processes is absolutely crucial. And the key challenge as we get more development extending to all parts of the country that all of us confront at a municipal level is how do we access more land under traditional leadership control for development purposes. The Integrated Urban Development Framework the President addressed earlier on, he gave you the numbers about how we anticipate urbanization as we go forward. In your packs, you will find a copy of this document, which will be open to discussion for the next few months. And on the basis of this, which has been accepted by government as a policy framework, we begin to get better rural-urban integration and better urban planning and delivery taking place as well. when these slides are distributed to you, you can have a look at the details. So in conclusion, colleagues and ladies and gentlemen, and Mr. President, the Back to Basics approach is about saying, in the last 14 years of local government democracy and the last 20 years of national democracy, we've done extremely well as a country in building new democratic structures, in training a whole new generation or a few generations of public officials, both political and non-political, and concretely delivering to our people. We've taken stock of this through the National Development Plan and through other mechanisms. We know that we have more challenges to actually overcome, and the Back to Basics approach is to say, how do we all lift our performance to a new level in order to assure all 50-odd million South Africans that we do care about the conditions in which they live, we do care about whether they have economic opportunities in the municipalities under your jurisdiction, and importantly, to create a climate where both those in government and outside of government, in all sectors of our society, work together to create a better life for all South Africans. Thank you very much.
A round of applause for the Minister again. Thank you very much. As you can see that there are no mics standing, but there's a point where you will be able to ask questions. So I'll be asking the CEO of SITA, the State Information Technology Agency, Mr. Friedman Nomvalo, to come forward to come and explain. On your desk, there's this panel, interactive instrument. The President and the Minister and the Deputy Minister will also get theirs. They will then
bring awareness to our passengers about what Ebola is about, importantly, how it is transmitted, and the key thing about it is that it is not airborne.
Across the board, women are at risk of getting breast cancer, and the risk factors are, in fact, a family history, a strong family history of breast or ovarian cancer.
The plastic surgeon, the first thing he would check is your weight and would ensure that your body mass index is within the normal range. And if not, they probably would actually, suggest that you lose weight before you even consider having these procedures.
Catch Dr. Silo Mutaung on Health Talk every Saturday from 9 to 10 on SABC News.
It's 11:25 Central African time on Thursday, the 18th of September 2014. Sanibonani, Apsheni, Habari, Molweni, Kunjani, Komesta, Namasta, Buongiorno, Macciaroni, Goeiemorgen, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to AM News here on SABC News Channel 404. We're broadcasting live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, and you have to stay with us as we bring you only the latest news from here and around the globe. I'm Elvis Preslin. I'll be your host until 12:30. With me is our sports anchor, Kendall Makamate, a very good morning to you.
A hearty good morning to you too, Elvis.
It was UEFA last night, wasn't it?
It was UEFA Champions League time last night. It was match day one, second part of match day one. And Bayern Munich beat Manchester City 1-0. Very late strike by former Manchester City player Jerome Boateng. As well as we know that in the MTN 8, VV says Pirates are ready to go at Kaizer Chiefs.
Now that's all coming up with Kendall a short while, but right now, let's take a look at all your headlines. The first ever presidential summit on local government gets underway in Johannesburg. Economists warn of an increased risk of an interest rate hike on the back of higher inflation figures in August. And German giants Bayern Munich and their Spanish counterparts Barcelona starts their Champions League campaign on a winning note.
PK.
Those are all your headlines. Our top story this hour. President Jacob Zuma has urged municipal officials and workers to go back to basics. The president was speaking at the first ever presidential summit on local government in Johannesburg. The summit is aimed at reviewing progress made in improving service delivery in the country. It will look closely at capacity and corruption issues. The president has identified this as key to ensuring that people have access to government services.
Going back to basics also means a recommitment to provide exercise. The second thing that the device will help you do, towards the last 5 minutes of the person who will be presenting, you will be given an opportunity to text a message, a viewpoint, or in some cases, some of the questions may be open-ended questions that require a short answer. This here, those that are my age and above will remember that we used to send telegraphs. And we used to have to write very short messages. So the SMS is designed on that. And today, the younger generation, they send SMSs, they tweet, and therefore they'll be able to send those messages using this device. Again, for the people in the room that may have sight problems, if they can identify the F button, which is the second row from the bottom, they will be able then to work out how this is a QWERTY keyboard. It's the same keyboard as the one that we have on your keyboard in the office. So you'll be able to use that and then type a short message. The bottom right button is for spacing. The button to the left of that, second bottom on the right, is the button to change between capital and small letter. And then there's a punctuation, which is the @ sign, which is the third button from the bottom on the right-hand side. So please keep that in mind, and you can use that to text messages. On this one, I'm not going to ask for you to do any exercise. Please just remember that you can text. You only have 270 characters that you can put in your text message that you send through. Make it sweet and short. And the last thing that you can do with this device is that to avoid the roving mic being distributed around and taking time,